Niranjan Hiranandani, President SOCHAM, but also from the Hiranandani group joining us on the show today. It was great to speak to you yesterday. Now the second tranche of the government stimulus has been announced. Before I come to the agricultural part, which has got the majority of the funding today, I want to speak about some of the reformative steps that the government has announced. One is, of course, what we just heard, the One Nation, One Ration Card portability, which has already got about 83% surveillance. It's going to have maybe the rest by the end of the year. But I also want you to talk about the affordable renting scheme for the urban poor. A big problem we see all around us all the time, which is about how the conditions in which the urban poor lives. What do you make of that?
I think the biggest story which I hear today is empathy. Empathy for the poor, empathy for the migrant labor, empathy for the street vendors, empathy for the small traders, for the fishermen, for the agricultural workers, for afforestation workers. So I see empathy all around. And I think the focus in respect of housing for the migrant people and the others is a concept which is actually wonderful. Today, if you look at us, 50% of the people living in Mumbai live in jhopatpattis. If this scheme comes up, at least the future addition to jhopatpattis will not take place. And this will be an important improvement while the redevelopment of the old slums takes place. The newer migrant laborers or those people can go into rental housing. And I think that's a fantastic scheme. You must be aware that already the rental housing policy has been put up last year on the website of the Housing Ministry, and it is expected that it would be passed any moment now. But of course, because of COVID, probably it must be delayed. But the idea basically being that this time the focus is not on rental housing as a whole, but to see that that segment of the population which needs it most, who can't afford to buy or get free housing at this point of time because they are migrant people, I think rental housing is a thing to be done. So I think it's wonderful. 70,000 crores of rupees are committed for this avenue, and the CLS as a scheme in terms of the middle class housing. I think these two things put together will give an extreme big boost in terms of affordability of housing in this segment. It's a very, very positive move. But I think overall, if you look at it...
And attract investment as well, because this will kickstart the construction activity and the construction sector. We all know how much it contributes. A lot of the labor-intensive construction work can begin. But I want to ask you, as far as the affordable rental scheme is concerned, the government said this will be a PPP model. They're going to encourage manufacturing units, institutions, and other private players to come forward with this. What kind of response are you expecting from the industry on this?
See, I'll tell you, after the movement of labor during this COVID crisis, those people who did not have labor on the site or did not have it really have had a big problem because there is no labor available for the factories or for the construction work. While where we had labor camps as well as those factories which had in the neighborhood were benefited for this. So I think most of the people will go in for this type of activity for the purpose. Look at the good old days. If you see Godrej as a colony, they have got not only the factories, but also residential accommodation. Look at Jamshedpur, the same. I see all the old industrial houses. They used to have housing for their people. Look at the banks and financial institutions in the good old days. They had housing for their staff and others. Over a period of time, the incentivization to create housing stock or rental housing stock, either for the services, people who work with you, or for the purposes of giving it out on rent, have actually been destroyed by the Rent Act. I think the changes which they are now going to bring, will incentivize creating this PP model so that people will be incentivized to construct such housing in the private sector for their employees or for renting out to the other segment. And second, also for the purposes of a situation like COVID coming in future, the housing to be there. Look at China. I've been to many of the factories there. 90% of the factories have housing for the labor next to the factories. Here, of course, because of the agitational nature of labor, this is not encouraged. But I think in the future, we need to do that.
Right. Yes, at the same time, the government has also announced some measures for migrant laborers themselves and making their situation better. At the same time, if they've gone back, there has been employment that has been provided through Manrega. There has been a jump of nearly 40 to 50% in the enrollment. So overall, migrant workers have been a big focus. Niranjan, Hiranandani, that's all the time we have right now. But of course, we love to explore the concept of just what to do to ensure that there is not this large-scale migration in the first place. That is something that the Indian system needs to look at, because if there is such large-scale migration to only a few urban centers, then this problem is not going to go away. That is a long-term solution we'll look forward to. But appreciate you joining us for the meantime.